Görkemli kutsal Rab, tahtında egemensin. Yüce kuvvetli Rab, kudretle yönetirsin. Ben kimim ki beni böyle sevesin? Ben kimim ki benimle ilgilenesin? Tapınırım sana, hayranım Rab. Muhteşem işleriyle, bana olan sevgine, sana hayranım Rab. Dünya elinde olan bizde konut kuruyor. Hayranım sana, hayranım sana. Başlangıç ve son, zaman seni kapsayamaz. Ebedi sevgili, yürekler kavrayamaz. Ben kimim ki beni böyle sevesin? Ben kimim ki benimle ilgilenesin? Tapınırım sana, hayranım Rab. Muhteşem işleriyle, bana olan sevgine, sana hayranım Rab. Dünya elinde olan bizde konut kuruyor. Sana hayranım Rab. Muhteşem işleriyle, bana olan sevgine, sana hayranım Rab. Dünya elinde olan bizde konut kuruyor. Hayranım sana, hayranım sana, hayranım sana, hayranım sana. Sevgim ne yüce, sevgim ne yüce, sevgim ne yüce,
Welcome, everybody. A quick passage from Revelation chapter 7. After these things I looked, and behold, a great multitude which no one could number, of all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues. Praise God that we have brothers and sisters from all nations, tribes, tongues, all praising the Lord. Today, we're going to be talking about Afghanistan. We're going to be talking about Taliban, and the way that I thought about this was I saw a tweet this morning. Someone made the comment that Taliban does not represent Islam, and I thought this may be a good conversation starter. Maybe you have classmates, maybe you have colleagues, maybe you have family members, people that you want to have these conversations with, but you're not sure how to start. Well, everybody is watching the news now. They see what's going on in Afghanistan. Maybe you're at the workplace, maybe you're at lunch, maybe you have a Muslim coworker, maybe you have non-Muslim coworkers, but they might be influenced by liberal media, and the topic of Afghanistan might come up, and they ask, what do you think is happening in Afghanistan? And you guys have a conversation, and then it leads up to them saying something like, Islam isn't represented by people like Taliban. So today I have with me a special guest from DCCI Ministries, Daughter of Christ. Daughter of Christ, welcome, sister.
Peace of Christ be with you, brother. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad that you're here with us today, and we're going to be covering this topic together. So thanks for being with us.
It's a pleasure, brother. I hope you're well, and thank you for bringing this topic. It's very timely and it's very important.
Yes, thank you. Okay, well, let's just get right into it. So a number of things that these people say to cite the fact that Islam is not represented by Taliban, what they mean is that Taliban are doing things that Muhammad did not teach, or that they're contradicting the teachings of Islam in some way, somehow. So let's just go over some of the more controversial things that the Taliban has done. So we have an article here. Taliban takes over Afghanistan. So famously sitting at the president's house in Afghanistan, where the former president of Afghanistan used to rule from, you have the new leadership in the country, Taliban. So what they've done is they've taken over the government. They've overthrown the government, and they're replacing it with what they believe to be an Islamic one. And that's our question today. We're asking, is this Islamic? Are what these people are doing, is it Islamic? Are they accurately representing Islam or not? And so let's just start with that. When we see Taliban taking over the presidential house in Afghanistan, when we see them taking over this country, is that an Islamic thing? Is that something that Muhammad taught people to do? Is that something that he did? Or is that something against Islam? Daughter of Christ, what do you think?
Brother, to say Taliban is not Islamic is like saying the sky is not blue. Everything Taliban does is supported by what Muhammad did, and is encouraged and ordered by what Muhammad did and said, and it's all over the Islamic sources. And I saw that tweet, brother, where you tweeted back saying to the person who claims that Taliban is not Islamic, show me where it is in Islam that Muhammad didn't do what the Taliban do. Everything the Taliban are doing at the moment, Muhammad has done, multiplied by 100, exactly. During the 7th century. And we have the sources. It's clear. It's everything is very, very clear. I think the Muslims deny because of either embarrassment, because it is embarrassing to see Muhammad's life being lived out in the modern day, how it looks, or because of lack of knowledge. Go on, brother.
So let's imagine this situation. Let's say we're at the workplace, we're at lunch, and we're sitting with our colleagues, and we're talking about this topic. Let's say the news is on in the background. In America, let's say we have like CNN or whatever the equivalent in the UK, let's say some liberal kind of station, and they have some spokesman on there saying like Taliban does not represent Islam, and so it sparks a conversation in the workplace, let's say. And the reason why I'm giving that as an example is because sometimes we might be uncomfortable bringing up these topics at work or something, or in certain contexts, but I think that this gives us an opportunity to tell people the truth about Islam, and then that might be able to open doors where we can share the gospel with them as well. So let's say that they bring up this point. They say, well, look, they just took over this whole country. That's not something Muhammad taught. Muhammad didn't do this. Muhammad didn't teach people to overthrow governments. He didn't teach people to establish Islamic law. How would you respond to that specific point? Let's say if a coworker raised that.
Muhammad didn't say to overtake governments and countries. So how do you explain Islam having started in Mecca, a tiny dot in the middle of Arabia, for fast forward 100 years later, and it spread to a third of the known world? Did they do it by telepathy? Did they just telepathically tell people to become Muslim and everybody just surrendered? No, they took arms. Muhammad took arms. In his life, he started with the Arabian Peninsula, and by the end of his life, he had conquered it militarily, completely, and drove away the Jews and Christians and killed or subdued the pagans. And then after him, the caliphs, the people who took over the Islamic State, they went out in all directions carrying what? The sword. And we know that from the sources, they used to go to the rulers of countries and say, Islam taslam, which means either you become Muslim or you're not. If you become Muslim, you're not safe. And we got it all over the Quran. You've got a surah, brother. That's Surah 8, verse 39. It says, and fight them until there is no fitna, and until their religion, i.e. the worship of all, is to Allah. So you basically fight until the religion, people's religions, becomes Islam, for Allah, which means Islam. And in the tafsir of that, it says you fight the disbelievers until there is no more fitna. What does that mean? It means no more disbelief, no more idolatry, no more idol worship, no more any other religions against Islam. So Islam started, everything around it was non-Muslim, and by the end of those, the as history went on, people were forced into Islam, and that's according to the Quran. So you've got the tafsir here. So it's obvious. I don't know if you want to move on to the next thing we have on the list, or do you want to say something, brother?
Sure. So I'm just pulling up different ones as you're speaking. So as you mentioned, we have chapter 8, verse 39. We have other ones, chapter 47, verse 7. And we're going to get into all these in chapter 9, verse 111. So which one of these would you like to go to next?
Take your pick, brother. It's, actually, this is just a sample. We have so many verses, almost all the Quran, really. So this is Surah 9, verse 111. This is the last surah that was revealed to Muhammad, the marching orders for Muslims. What does it say? Allah has bought from the believers their lives, so as in purchased from them, their lives and their properties. So it's a deal, yeah? In exchange for paradise. They fight in the cause of Allah. So what do you need to fight? You need to give your life, and you need to give from your money. That's what war, that's the war, what the war requires, your lives and your money. And you give that in exchange for what? For paradise. Look at what the verse is saying. So they kill and are killed. So isn't that what the Taliban is doing? Isn't that what the Taliban is doing? They kill and are killed because why? Because they want this deal with Allah. They want him to purchase their lives and their property for paradise. They're doing this for theological reasons. They're doing it because of Islam.
Exactly. Okay, let's go on to another example. Chapter 47, verse 7.
Yeah, so Surah 47, verse 7. It says, "O you who believe, if you support Allah, He will support you and plant your feet firmly." How do you support Allah? The tafsir tells us, by fighting. By fighting. So see how weak Allah is. Allah needs the believers to fight against the enemy. And He says He will help you conquer this enemy and will make your foothold firm in fighting so that you do not swerve. That's what the tafsir is saying. That's what the verse is saying. And these are the verses, the marching orders from Muhammad. When he died, Muslims took those verses and went all over because they wanted to support Allah. They wanted to spread the religion of Allah. They wanted there not to be any more fitna in the land. And they wanted Allah's word to be uppermost and every other religion or ideology to be subdued. That's what Islam is. And that's what the Taliban is doing. From their view, their government was not under Islam. So they went to subdue it with arms and with themselves, like what Muhammad said. So how can it? Where are they getting this from? Well, they're getting this from the Quran and Muhammad's example.
Exactly. All right, let's go to some of our. By the way, we have another reference here. I'm kind of zoomed in on this one. Chapter 8, verse 39. But let's go to. Oh, we have a bunch of hadith as well. So it's wherever you want to go to cover it. If you want to speak about this one.
Yeah. So I'm just going by the one you're choosing, brother.
Okay.
So the one I have here, I don't know if it's the one you have.
Okay.
It's Mishkat al-Masabih 3812.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah,
one.
this
Yeah,
is the
that's
one.
the one.
Okay, yeah.
So it's basically talking about Muhammad encouraging, inciting violence. He says, no warlike party or body or troops will go out to fight, gain booty, and return safe without getting beforehand 2/3 of their rewards. And no warlike party or body or troops, so think of Afghanistan right now, will be disappointed of their hopes and be smitten without getting their rewards in full. That's also in Sahih Albani and Muslim. Sahih Muslim also narrated it. So basically he's saying, if you're a troop, either way, either whatever happens, you'll get rewards. So if you go and fight and return safe and return with the booty, like what the Taliban troops have done now, they've returned triumphant, isn't it? They're in the palace, presidential palace. They get 2/3 of their reward. Okay. But if you are disappointed, let's say they are defeated, you'll get more reward. You'll get reward in full. So do you see how is inciting violence? Either way, don't worry. Your reward is with Allah.
Exactly. So again, to everybody, we're answering the question: is Taliban actually Islamic or not? And maybe someone will throw this at you. They'll say, well, Taliban took over the country by force. They're fighting. They're doing violence. And as we've seen so far, this action is thoroughly Islamic. And I see that there's no English equivalent for this part here, but the grading is authentic, sahih. So these are authentic hadith. These are not weak or anything like that. And by the way, we have the Quran in the commentary anyway. So we're just giving kind of like icing on the cake. Okay, so let's go on to our next one. Let me zoom in a little bit.
Yep.
So, sister, if you want to explain this one.
So this one, brother, this is for the Muslims again who say, oh, it's just for that time. Oh, it's not for Muslims today. Here, Muhammad is speaking to all Muslims, past, present, and future, right? This is again, the grading is in Arabic, Sahih by Albani and also by Muslim. Abu Huraira reported God's messenger saying, he who dies without having fought, so that's anybody, he who dies without having fought or having felt it, so without having intended it, to be his duty, will die guilty of a kind of hypocrisy. And in the Arabic, brother, it says, Man mata walam yaghzu. So the word is actually whoever dies without having invaded. Yaghzu. For people who say it's self-defense. No. Yaghzu means to invade. It means you're the aggressor. So here Muhammad is saying every Muslim should either go out to conquer or at least think about it and intend it in his heart. Always be in either you're invading or preparing to invade in your heart. Otherwise, you'll be guilty of hypocrisy. And brother, we know what the Quran says about hypocrites. Hypocrites are worse than unbelievers. They are in the lowest level of hell.
Exactly. And that's going to come up. Because we hear that often. You can kind of switch out ISIS for Taliban in this instance, but a lot of times people will say, oh, ISIS kills more Muslims than non-Muslims, and they're trying to say, well, therefore it's not Islamic because they're killing a lot of Muslims more than non-Muslims. And I assume in the future we're going to hear that same thing, except instead of ISIS, it's going to be Taliban. But we'll get to that. So we have one more hadith here. And as you said, these examples can be multiplied by the hundreds possibly by the thousands. So here's just our last one on this particular point on overthrowing a government or fighting. Is that Islamic? Is this practice, this jihad, this doing war for Allah, is this Islamic or not? Is that practice, when we look at what Taliban did, can that be justified through Islam? So far we've seen definitively yes, and here is our final example on this point.
Of course it is, brother. Of course it is justified by Islam. This is another hadith narrated multiple times by Bukhari and Muslim, and also agreed upon by Albani. It says, Abu Musa told that a man came to the Prophet and said, one man fights for booty, one for the reputation of fighting, and one for his degree of bravery to be seen. Which of them is in God's path? He replied, the one who fights that God's word may have preeminence in God's path, is in God's path. So do you see? Why do people fight? So everybody's fighting, first of all, just so that you know the environment the Muslims were at the moment. Everybody was fighting, but this man was asking for the intention. What is your intention when you're fighting? Muhammad saying, fight so that Allah's word is uppermost, is preeminent. And that means you want, what does that mean? It means that you want Allah's religion to be preeminent, which means you want to bring Sharia law. You want to bring the Quran as the source of legislation. You want to bring all the laws of Allah, like the chopping of people's limbs, the killing of apostates, etc., etc. All Allah's laws. So what is ISIS doing? Exactly that. What is Taliban is doing? Exactly that. And there is a reason why all these groups are springing up all over the world doing the exact same thing. Have you never asked yourself that? Why are they all Muslim? And why are they all saying that we're doing this for Allah? And why are they all appealing to the sources? Because that's what Muhammad did, and that's what they are trying to do. They are following the exact same prototype and example. It's not rocket science, and this is where it's from, and it's clear as day.
Exactly. All right, well, I think that's suffice for that one. So again, guys, what we want to do is we want to prepare you, the audience, we want to prepare you. And if you're a Muslim listening, then hopefully this will open your eyes to see what your religion actually teaches. But for those who are listening that are not Muslims, we want to prepare you for these types of conversations. So again, let's say you're at the workplace and this topic comes up, it's on the news, people are talking about it. They say, well, look at what they're doing. They took over the country, they fought people, they subjugated people, they overthrew the presidential palace. All of these things, as you can see, we've just established with Sister Daughter of Christ that these are thoroughly Islamic actions. And so when they point to that to say that that is not Islamic, it actually does the opposite. It shows that they are actually Islamic. All right, so Vice did a video interview with some Muslims. I'm not sure what they're drinking there, but yeah, we can leave that picture photos, I guess.
Probably tea, brother.
Yeah.
We got our sister Hatun in the chat. She cited another very well-known source, Bukhari 4:196.
Okay.
Muhammad says, I have been ordered to fight the people until they say none has the right to be worshipped but Allah.
There you go.
Thank you, sister.
Thank you, Sister Hatun. And so here we have yet another reference to show that what they're doing is thoroughly Islamic. All right. And thank you for checking the chat as well. I have this on the side, so it's hard for me to read both.
I just checked it now and I saw brother. God bless you, sister.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. God bless you, Sister Hatun. All right. So this point now. People will point to this and they'll say, well, look at what. So again, in this interview here, they have a journalist talking to some. I guess this guy is the judge resigning over the case. This guy right here, he is being accused of stealing a sheep, and basically what they're going to do here is decide his fate. And so they don't show you what they're going to do, but they basically suggest if he did steal it, then the appropriate punishment will follow. So let's say someone says decapitating someone, or let's say, for example, if you steal a sheep, if that is worthy of cutting off your hand, let's say cutting off your hand for this offense, is that an Islamic practice, or is this something on the other side that they can point to say, look, they're not Islamic because they're cutting off people's hands for stealing things?
Yep, extra points for guessing, brother. Of course, it's Islamic. Actually, a sheep is an expensive thing, brother. There is a hadith about it. You can get your hand chopped off for just stealing an egg or a piece of rope. Not a sheep is like expensive compared to that, and that's Bukhari, Sahih Bukhari 6799. It is a long list of links that you have, brother. So don't worry if you can't find it on time. I'll just read it.
I have it on the screen here. Yep.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it says, narrated Abu Huraira, Allah's apostle said, Allah curses the thief who steals an egg for which his hand is to be cut off. An egg, can you believe it? Like he might be hungry or something, but anyway, an egg. Or steals a rope for which his hand is to be cut off. Sahih Bukhari 6799. So that's the mercy to mankind. Yet, that is Muhammad. And obviously we have the surah, the verse that says, Surah 5 verse 38, for the thief, male and female, amputate their hands in recompense for what they have earned as a deterrent from Allah. So that is the answer. Yes, sheep or less even is the answer.
Wow. Okay, so someone can't use that as an example to say these guys are not Islamic. So far, we're kind of going down the list here of things that people might point to that will say, look, they're doing this, so therefore it proves that they're not Islamic. But what we're actually finding out is, as we continue to read more and more, is that these actions are Islamic, and by the fact that they're doing these things, it's telling us that they are practicing Islam. So again, it's proving the opposite point that they're trying to make. They're trying to make the point to say, look at this extreme action, and this is the proof that they're not Islamic. But actually, when we study that out with the help of the Daughter of Christ and all the sources here, we see, no, actually that proves the opposite. They actually are Islamic. All right, so there's been news reports about Taliban going door to door to capture young children, or force marry or enslave women. And funny enough, the one of the official representatives of Taliban actually denied this accusation. I just figured I'd show this on the screen here. Suhail Shaheen, he says, all those claims that the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan forces people to marry their young girls to the Mujahideen are totally wrong. It is poisonous propaganda. Okay, so we know that the Taliban are not, known for being truthful, but let's say someone points to this, they point to this and they say that this is proof that the Taliban are not Islamic. They're going around enslaving women. They're taking little girls, enslaving these girls, forcing them into marriage. We see the Taliban denying this, but let's just say people go to this. Is this something that they can justify in Islam or not?
Yes, again, of course they can. That's where they're getting it from. If the Taliban are not enslaving women and girls, then even they are better than the Prophet, because that's what Muhammad did. He enslaved women and girls. They're called captives of war, Surah 424.
Okay. Wait, sorry.
Yeah.
I have it on the screen somewhere.
That's okay. Yeah.
Right,
that's 65 verse 4. That's about the young girls. So that's fine. We can start with that, brother,
okay,
if it
we'll start
suits
with
you.
this one. Okay.
So everybody would be, most people would know this Surah Al-Talaq, Surah Al-Divorce, 65 verse 4, about the women that are allowed to be divorced, and the waiting period for those women. And the waiting periods for those women are 3 months. And it goes into the different groups of women. And one of those groups, which is the second group, are those who have not yet reached their periods, which are young girls. And the tafsir here, Tafsir ibn Abbas, is very obvious that it's talking about young girls. If you see the middle of the paragraph here, O Messenger of Allah, he was asked about women that are too young. What about the waiting period for those who do not have menstruation because of they are too young? That's about the fourth line down. Along with those who have had it not because of the young age. You see, they're all young. Their waiting period is 3 months. So actually, do you notice at the beginning of the verse it says, "And such of your women." So he's talking about women, and he's including these young girls. So that means that women, in the eyes of those men, included children. So they saw these young girls as women. They saw them in a sexual way, and that is what the verse is proving, really. And it's saying, well, yeah, 3 months, so that means they could be divorced, married and divorced before they even reach their periods. So if the Taliban is not doing it, which yes they are, but if they're not, then even they are better than this verse and the time of Muhammad, when they did do it.
All right, sorry about the little confusion there. So let's go to 424. Here we go. I don't know. I didn't prepare the translation, but hopefully we can work with one of these translations on the screen here.
Yeah, so 424, as you know, brother is talking about what's prohibited in terms of marriage. So here it's saying, prohibited to you are married women. So you don't touch married women, except those your right hand possesses. So, that means some married women are lawful for those people to violate. And your right hand possessed are captives of war. So what you have, brother, here is the translation. It does say right hand possesses, the Sahih translation, and that is, these are the captives of war. So this is so you can go and capture a city, like we've mentioned with the other sources, by force, like Muhammad said, by invasion, and then you capture their women, and you can enslave, married or not. Even them. So obviously, even if the married ones are, you can enslave them and violate them. So obviously you can, and we've seen from the other verse that children are, young girls, children are seen as fair game as well, to marry them in the state of peace. So obviously you're going to capture them in the state of war.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we have a couple of references from different hadith here. So here's one. I think, so commenting on 424, we have a hadith here relevant to that.
Yeah, so this hadith is, it's Sahih hadith, is narrated a few times. This is from Nisa'i 3333. And it was narrated that Allah sent an army to Autas, and they met the enemy, and they fought the enemy, prevailed over them. They acquired female prisoners who had husbands among the idolaters, and the Muslims felt reluctant to be intimate with them. Allah the Almighty said, "Forbidden are to you are women already married, except those slaves from your right hand possess." Meaning, this is permissible for you. This is permissible for you once they have completed their iddah. So iddah period is a waiting period. So they used to wait for 3 months to be sure that those married captives were not already pregnant. Just in case they fell pregnant by the captors, by the Muslim rapers, they wanted to be sure that the pregnancy was, to differentiate between someone conceived by the husbands already or by the captors. It's very disgusting and disturbing. That's why there was a waiting period, because those women were already married and their husbands were still there. And the Muslims were not sure because they had husbands, but Surah 424 came and basically allowed everything, allowed their rape. And it is rape, because no married woman would, voluntarily give herself to a captor. Obviously, it's rape.
Exactly. So once again, even though we have Taliban denying this, which is really crazy that Twitter actually allows these guys to have accounts. David Wood just did a really good video about this the other day, showing 2 other accounts that are run by official members of Taliban, their representatives, their spokesmen. They're denying these things, but we have a kind of a track record with these people, and we know that what they say and what they do are often two very different things. So although this is being denied, let's say someone still points to this and says, well, there are articles that say that they're going door to door, forcibly capturing minor girls. I'm not reading verbatim, but this is what the headline says. Girls as young as 12 to make them their wives. So let's say they use that to say that this is anti-Islamic, therefore they're not Muslims, they're not true Muslims, they're not representing Islam. We have another reference here to show, did Muhammad actually encourage marriage with younger virgins, or does it matter? Does God get concerned with whether your wife or your husband is an older or younger, or like what is this is the question. So this is the hadith here. Go ahead, sister.
Yeah, brother, we all know what Muhammad thought of. 12 is a bit old for him, I think. He went for 6. He was a
Yeah.
50 odd year old man walking around saying, I'm engaged to a 6-year-old,
Right.
So
So
12 is
not
old.
anti-Islamic. That's a little older than
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't a 50-year-old man be embarrassed to say to his friend, yeah, my 6-year-old fiance is just left or something? It's just disgusting. And
yeah.
then he was so merciful. He consummated when she was 9. Wow, I'm so amazed. He mercy to mankind, the big difference, right? So 12 is actually old by that standard, but the thing that you have on the screen, brother, it's Sahih Hadith by Sunan Nisa'i 3219. It was narrated that someone came to the Prophet called Jabir, and he said, I got married, then I came to the Prophet. So we'd expect the Prophet to say congratulations or bless their marriage or something. But was he concerned with? Is she a virgin or not? Like, it's so disgusting. That's what he's concerned about. Like, how would you even ask somebody that question? But anyway, he said, have you got married, O Jabir? He said, I said yes. He said, to a virgin or to a previously married woman? It's like shameful question. I said, to a previously married woman. The Prophet said, why not a virgin? So you could play with her and she could play with you. I'm not sure what kind of playing he means, but we all know it's sickening. He's talking about the physical side of marriage and talking about virgins, asking very personal questions like, why is he concerning himself with his friend's wife's virginity? Is like disgusting. But that's what was on the mind of Muhammad, and it's the same spirit that's on the lust and the depravity that's on the minds of his followers. The closer they follow him, the closer the stronger that spirit is, sick, perverted spirit.
Exactly.
And that's what we see with them.
Exactly. So thank you so much, sister. So we'll go on to our next point, but just to kind of recap. So guys, if you hear this, if you hear someone bringing this to you and saying, look, what's going on in Afghanistan is terrible, but the Taliban, they don't represent Islam. That's not true Islam. Here's why. They're going around to these villages and to these areas where tribal areas, and they're forcing girls as young as 12 to marry them. This is not an Islamic action, to force marry or to marry children or anything like that. As we've seen, that's not the case. It's actually very Islamic to do so. So another thing that people bring up, let's see, I don't want to skip anything. We have oh yeah, sorry about that. So before we go on to the next point, we do have one final example to show for this question. Is it Islamic to capture women? Here's another example before we move on.
Oh yes, brother. So yes, so capturing women and raping them, acquiring sex slaves was such a big motivator by Muhammad that it came to a point where people said, stop tempting me with women. Can you believe that?
To a prophet of God saying that too.
Stop tempting me with women.
Yeah.
That's in Surah 9, verse 49. So the background of that was they had an opportunity to go and conquer a place called Tabuk. And Tabuk, people would know it as Bani al-Asfar. So the Arabs used to call them as Bani al-Asfar, which literally means the children of the yellow. meaning the yellow head or the blonde, blonde.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Muhammad was he was known to say, اغزوا تبوك تغنموا بنات الأصفر. Conquer Tabuk and you will have the spoils from the daughters of the blonde or the yellow. And so people said to him, somebody said to him, don't tempt me with women. So that's Surah 9, verse 49. Some of them who say, grant me leave to stay behind and do not lead me into temptation. This is Al-Jadd ibn al-Qais, who the Prophet said to him, will you do battle against the Byzantines? And to which he replied, I'm infatuated with women. So that's a person who says, look, it's a women are a weakness to me, and you're tempting me with blonde women. I want to stay behind. I don't want to be tempted. And what did Allah say in that verse? He said, they have already fallen into temptation because they have fallen behind. They haven't. They don't want to go to war. So
Wow.
Allah is actually quite happy for people to be tempted by women and spoils of war, as long as he gets the land conquered. That's what Muhammad cares about. And it took to the point of somebody saying to him, stop tempting me.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
So when you think of this and you read these things and you just contrast them, I'm sure all the Christians, we have example after example after example that are major contrasts in the Bible to how the attitude of the true God is towards these issues of sin and temptation, and it's very different and sometimes polar opposites to what Islam teaches, and that's how we know that this is from the devil. So what the Taliban are doing, what they are practicing is Islamic. Let's just go to another point here. So we have an article from CNN saying Taliban fighters execute 22 Afghan commandos as they try to surrender. Okay, so someone might come and say, well, what these, kind of going back to the point that I said we were going to revisit later, how they're killing a lot of Muslims. We heard about this with ISIS. They're killing more Muslims than non-Muslims, and this was a point that people would try to use to say that therefore they're not Islamic because they're killing Muslims. So the question is it Islamic? Is it Islamic to punish people, and sometimes the punishment is death? Is it Islamic to do this to people, to have this punishment on people who are seen as fighting against the Islamic State? So do we have any examples in Islam, Muhammad's practice, in the Quran, anywhere where we see that the punishment against people who fought against the state, who fought against the Islamic religion, the religion of Allah, do we have any examples of where these people were killed? Or is it the case that they just said, oh, we're Muslims, and so they weren't killed? Is that how it works?
It's not how it works, brother. So, as you know, just off the top of my head, when Muhammad died, all Abu Bakr did was kill quote-unquote Muslims. So he called them apostates because they wouldn't just give the zakah, but they called themselves Muslims. But he called them apostates and
Exactly.
waged war against them, and he spent 2 whole years, his whole reign, and then before he died, killing Muslims for the sake of one piece of one rule that they didn't do. And I think we have some verses, brother.
So just to kind of highlight that point though. So let's say if we had a time machine and we had these commentators on CNN or liberal news, and they're saying things like, well, Abu Bakr is killing more Muslims than non-Muslims. So therefore, the implication is that he's not Islamic. Obviously, he's the Caliph after Muhammad, so thoroughly Islamic. That's the actually exemplar for Muslims. They try to copy his example, right? Isn't that the case?
Yes, there is a misconception that if Muslims are suffering under someone, that person is not Islamic. That's not true. Islam doesn't care. Islam doesn't care which bodies Islam that it walks over to have supremacy, to have expansion, to have domination. And we see that from the Muslim history, like we said with Abu Bakr, but also in the Quran verses themselves. Like in this one you have on the screen, brother. It says, that's Surah 5, verse 33. Indeed, the penalty for those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger. It says for those. It could be anybody, Muslim or non-Muslim. Anybody who sets himself against Allah and His Messenger, and or spread corruption in the land. So that could be, you could deem somebody to have done that, even if they're Muslim. And that's why so many Muslims are being killed by these people. The verse says the punishment for them is to be killed, crucified, have their hands and feet cut off from opposite sides, or exiled from the land. So yes, and the tafsir that you have on the screen, brother, it's the people that were punished were some were idolaters, but others were Muslim, and the punishment for them were to, like the verse says, killed, have their limbs chopped off, be exiled, be crucified.
Wow. Amazing. So again, we're finding out that the fact that they are killing mass amount of people, that even though they identify as Muslims, the fact that they worked alongside, or let's say in this case, these were Afghan soldiers who, for the past 20 odd years or so, were trained by Americans to fight them, and they perceive themselves as the embodiment of Islam on earth. Really, isn't that a fair way of representing what they believe, that they're the embodiment of Islam on earth? They're trying to further Islam on earth. Would you say that the Taliban would agree with that?
Yes, so obviously that's what they think, but I also think that they are correct in saying that they are the embodiment of Islam. They're following Muhammad's example to the letter. What he said about jihad, about not being a hypocrite. Like Sister Hatun has written, if you're not actively supporting jihad, you're not a Muslim. They're doing all these things. I would say they're more sincere than the moderate, comfortable Muslims in the West who are denying them. They have the sources to back them up.
Right.
So I would ask the moderate Muslims who are denying, I will say you are denying because you don't recognize these evil things in yourself, and you think your identity is Islam. So you think, well, if I don't believe this is what Islam is, then they can't be Muslim. Well, that's not the criteria. You're not like that. I don't know where you get your morality from. It may be your conscience or the way you were brought up, or you're just a good person. You don't like this evil, and you think it's Islam where this goodness is from. It isn't. Islam is on the side of those people. The sources of Islam are on the sides of those people. That's where they're getting it from. So if you're not comfortable with it, don't pretend that you have a lovely Islam that they're not following. Open your eyes to the real Islam that they're following, and leave it yourself if you believe you're better than it. You can't. You have to be consistent. You can't have it both ways. You can't create an Islam that's nice and say that's the real Islam, and
Yeah.
blind yourself to what's really happening.
Exactly. I couldn't agree
Yeah.
more. So Taliban are executing Afghan soldiers who used to fight against them, even though they're surrendering to them now. They're fighting against the Islamic State, though, and as we see here, this is a perfectly good punishment according to Islam. Not my judgment. I don't think it's a good punishment, but according to Islam, this is a perfectly good judgment and ruling. We have a hadith here to kind of further exemplify this, or to kind of prove this point here. So if you want to go over this one.
Yeah, so this is a hadith, again showing that the severe punishment that Muhammad inflicted upon people that he was once trying to help. This idea of treason, or that you've gone against Allah and His Messenger, and then you see the evil, the opposite side. You see the other face. So this is the famous hadith on the camel urine, brother. This is Bukhari 5686. So it says the climate of Medina didn't suit some people, so the Prophet ordered them to follow his shepherd, and drink the camel and the urine of the camels. So they followed the shepherd, that is the camels, and drank their milk and urine till their bodies became healthy. When they killed the shepherd and drove away the camels. When the news reached the Prophet, he sent some people in their pursuit. When they were brought, he cut their hands and feet. Remember the ruling from the other verse, brother? He cut their hands and feet, and not only that, their eyes were branded with heated pieces of iron. So he went above and beyond the punishment in the verse, and he actually left them in the desert until they died of thirst and bled to death. So do you see the brutality in punishment of people that just show that they have, maybe by their actions, that they've gone against Allah and His Messenger?
Yes. Well, I think we have clear answers to these objections now, and I want to thank you so much, Daughter of Christ, for being with me today to go over these things. And we hope that this helps you, the viewer. We hope this helps you if you ever run into this question. I gave a scenario. Let's say you're at the workplace and you're at the break, and this, but this could really be any setting. It could be with family. It could be with friends. It could be if you're in school. It could be if you're in university. Any setting. Let's say your professor asks the group of students, like, it's common to talk about, like, current events and get people's thoughts. So when this stuff comes up, and if it comes up in your life, we hope that this equips you to be able to answer the question: is Taliban truly Islamic, or are they imposters? Are they fake fake Muslims or whatever? I think we've seen closely, we've seen here that that's not the case, that they're not imposters, and that they're actually representing Islam. So I just want to give a final word to Sister Daughter of Christ, if you want to say anything, and then I'll close this out with a song.
The key to solving any problem, I say, is knowing the root of the problem. As long as people turn a blind eye and put their fingers in their ears and pretend that it's not Islam, it's going to continue. And we'll get more groups like that. They'll get more success because people are refusing to acknowledge the source of this evil. Once people around the world, Muslims first, recognize that it is Muhammad, it is the Quran, it is those teachings, that is the source of that, and then they start denouncing that as evil and saying, we denounce Islam, this is evil, it's not from God, it's from the devil, and anyone who follows it, whether it be Taliban or ISIS or any other group, we denounce them as followers of the devil as long as they follow Muhammad and Islam. That's when it will stop, or that's when it will, then we know you know your enemy then, and you're able to fight it. And I say the way to fight it, like my sister says, DCCI, she says to show the alternative. The alternative to that is the Lord Jesus Christ, who is able to change even those hard hearts of the Taliban and ISIS and those people who know what they believe and follow it because they think it's from God. Once they know the Lord Jesus Christ, they'll realize this evil and they will leave it. And that's when the real change happens. So please pray for those people, even those people, and pray for Afghanistan and the people there to be rescued from the physical danger of the Taliban, but also for their souls to be rescued from Islam and to come to the Lord Jesus Christ, who will then give them eternal life.
Amen. Thank you so much, Sister, for your help today. Thanks for the beautiful words. And yes, that's our ultimate goal, guys. We want to teach you how to answer these questions. We want to equip you to address these issues. But the ultimate goal is the gospel, as Sister Daughter of Christ said so perfectly and beautifully, that is our ultimate goal. We want to pray for people's salvation. We want to present the gospel with them. And so we're going to end out now, and I'm going to just play this song. Thank you so much, Sister, for joining, and we're going to close out listening to this song together.
كنت الكلمة في البدء واحد مع الله مجدك المعلن في الخلق ظاهر في ليس له نظير ما أجمل اسمك اسمه يسوع كنت تريد لنا السماء فأحضرتها لنا حبك محى خطيئتي لا شيء يفصلني عنك ما أجمل اسمك ما أجمل اسمك اسمه يسوع ملكي ما أجمل اسمك ليس له نظير ما أجمل اسمك اسمه يسوع ما أجمل اسمك اسمه يسوع غلبت الموت انشق الحجاب أسكت كبرياء القبر السماء